What's going on, Washington Commanders Nation? It's your boy Rio Robinson back with the latest and greatest on the Rambling with Rio YouTube channel where we ramble about the Washington Commanders. Today's guest, national writer for ESPN and NFL insider Jeremy Fowler, is going to break down the latest in the Terry McLaurin contract saga with the team. How are you doing today, Jeremy?
Hey, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Oh, yeah, no problem. Thank you for taking some time out of your afternoon to talk some ball with me. So, Washington fans, this is creating hostility and division amongst the fan base. It's either Team Adam Peters or Team Terry McLaurin. This situation, is it as tricky as it sounds?
It is, yes. This is a situation where the team and the player have different interpretations of the wide receiver market and what they're willing to do. And that gulf has been pretty wide, as opposed to some other situations where maybe it's a little closer and they're just going to haggle over details. This seems to be, at least from what I've gathered, more of a fundamental difference or belief in how this should go. So because of that, you're looking at a pretty big gap. I think Washington is willing to give him a raise from where he is, but not up into the money and the stratosphere that we've seen these bigger receiver contracts, where Terry can say, hey, you could probably argue Terry McLaurin's a better player than DK Metcalf, and DK Metcalf got $32 million. So it's a very hard discussion, and the way the market has gone with other players has sort of complicated the situation.
Very tricky because DK and Terry come from the same 2019 draft class, but Terry came in significantly older. So Terry's going into age 30 season,
Yeah.
and DK's still 27. But the production's there. He's coming off a season where he set the franchise record for touchdowns in a season, and everyone knows what he means off the field to the team as well. So on Terry's side, he believes he should get paid for what he did last year and some of what he did before Adam Peters and company got there. And on AP's side, a receiver's never garnered a contract of $30 million or more going into an age 30 season, right?
Yeah, I don't know the exact numbers, but the age and the third contract is the issue here. I think that the Commanders look at that as something that should warrant more of a reasonable price, at least in their mind, and yes, at a position like receiver where it's about explosion and it's about keeping your legs fresh, that age 30 threshold can be important, as opposed to maybe some other positions where guys won't slow down as quickly. I think a Cam Hayward, defensive tackle in Pittsburgh, wants a rework contract. He's 35 and was just an all-pro. Not that McLaurin can't do that. It's just harder to do. So it's you also have to remember where Adam Peters, the GM, comes from. He came from San Francisco, where they have been unafraid to tackle difficult contract situations and let it get ugly and play out and have guys hold out, all those things. So he seems like an unmovable force in that way. And so that's why I just don't see a clear path in something getting done just yet. I think both sides are going to have to be a little more uncomfortable for a while. But I do ultimately think it gets done somewhere. You have too much momentum going on. You already have a lot on Jaden Daniels' shoulders. To ask him to carry the offense without Terry is a big one.
Even with the acquisition of Deebo Samuel, you don't want to have to ask Deebo Samuel to be wide receiver one and put that pressure on him as well. But so when they say framework or metrics from DK's contract, is it the average annual or is it the guarantees?
Well, I think it's both. In this case, I think it's all the above. But a lot of times the guarantees are the sticking point, where with Trey Hendrickson, for example, both sides in Cincinnati are comfortable with the money they're offering. It's just whether they guarantee enough for his liking. So that to me is a more progressed situation than McLaurin's. I don't even think they've been in that ballpark of getting close and you just have to hammer out guaranteed money. I think they're apart in per year average and everything else. And so Terry, at least you've kind of cut out the holdout money, right? You're taking $50,000 fines per day. Now that's over. And you don't really have to play right now if you don't want. You can make this more uncomfortable. You're visible and in the building, which makes this a talking point for the media. And the offense needs you. So, I think if you're him, you're hoping all of those factors apply a little bit of pressure to make Washington move a little bit. But so far, they have not been willing to do that.
And he used, I guess, his biggest last piece of leverage by requesting a trade. From me, as a Washington fan, I see the trade request as just a part of negotiating a contract. Is he actually willing to see a future elsewhere, or is this just a part of the process of locking in the contract to stay here in DC?
Well, it's multi-layered, right? Like if you're McLaurin, at this point, if you were to be traded, assuming you're getting a new deal out of it, he would welcome that, you know?
Okay.
If you put him in some truth serum and say, hey, do you want to be in Washington, all things equal, I assume he would still want to be in Washington. Yeah. So it's the trade requests are becoming more part of the negotiation than an actual request in a general sense, because you see a lot of these players making them and they don't get traded. They're sort of either stuck where they are or they work out a new deal with their team. In this case, I do think the relationship has been fractured some. And I was told all along that Terry was willing to do whatever it takes to make this right in his mind, which is now requesting that trade. I guess you could call that the nuclear option. And he took it. And, I was being told that he would continue to do that until all pressure is applied. So it does appear that he's done all that there and done all he can. The only next step would be to just totally withhold services on game checks. And that's a big step. Maybe Washington would put him on some sort of reserve list and let him collect his paychecks while he sits, but that's a whole different conversation.
How much trade interest has he garnered league-wide since the trade request, or in general this offseason?
I'm trying to find that out for sure, but I was told that there's been a team that's looked into it that is, I guess you could say, pursued McLaurin via Washington, and my understanding is Washington still doesn't want to trade him, so I do think they're rebuffing any offers right now. I don't sense that they want to move on from him. Now, if there was a huge contract offer / multiple first-round picks or some huge package, I think Washington would look into it, but right now that's just not the reality. And I don't know how much a team would be willing to offer as far as draft pick compensation when you have to turn around and pay him the money that you do have to pay him. So it makes that complicated. There's just not as big of an appetite for these massive trades for veterans right now because of the ballooning salaries.
Yep. And with the quarterback that we currently have, Jaden Daniels, going into year 2, it's paramount that Washington has Terry on the field this year and for the next couple years of this rookie contract. Part of this could possibly be they're trying to write a contract to Terry that gets his wide receiver 1 money off the books when it's time to write Jaden, possibly the biggest contract the league has ever seen. Could that be playing a factor as well?
Well, I do think you're onto something there. Yeah, I mean, they have to budget for that. These deals tend to get done earlier and earlier, so Daniels will be eligible for a new deal in 2 years. And at that point, they will most likely have that discussion. I don't think there's any doubt. You're going to want to try to get ahead of a deal like that as opposed to wait. So the short answer is yes, I do think you're onto something there.
I've seen you mention the DK thing and that they could be $7 to $8 million apart. So we're talking Washington starting offer maybe around the $24-25 million range for Terry McLaurin.
Yeah, when I mentioned that earlier in the show, I was partly doing some math, but what I do know is that originally Washington was only willing to acknowledge a slight increase from where he currently was. So if he was at 23, let's ballpark that at 25. DK Metcalf is at 32. There's your 7. Okay. When I ran that by somebody in the know, I was told that sounds about right. So I do think the gulf is sort of in that range, and that's an issue. That's a big gap. So I don't know how they're going to close it. They would both have to relent and make concessions. And right now, that has not been the case yet.
Yeah, it seems like they're at a standstill. And as a fan, we keep drafting up these ways for them to split the difference. Like, could they make it work at 28.5, 29 million? Is there a compromise, or is Adam Peters going to have to make the full bend and get to at least 30 million to get this done before the season starts?
I think both sides are going to have to find a way to get a win. Mm-hmm. In order for this to work, where maybe Terry wants a 3 in front of his per year average, right? Okay. He wants 30 or more, but then Washington's going to have to find something they're comfortable with. If they give that up, then maybe they have less guarantees on the back end. or, they can save money on a signing bonus, whatever it is. But both sides are going to have to find a concession. Nobody's going to be able to get a major victory out of this thing if they're going to come to a deal.
The major victory ultimately is them just getting a deal done and keeping the core nucleus together around Jaden Daniels so they could compete with a title window opening up as early as this season. Just to close this one out, what is your prediction? Does this get settled this offseason, and what would your timetable be to when you think a deal could get completed?
All it takes is a few phone calls, so I'll never take it off the table to get done this month.